The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com. And good morning. Actually, afternoon, isn't it?
It's late in the afternoon.
Late in the afternoon. This is not our typical time that we get together and do stuff. But whatever time of day it is still the Old School Podcast, a podcast about the American education system and sundry. And with that in mind, we will be venturing into different territory. Jeez almighty.
Yes.
I can't talk.
What kind of a landing or start is that?
I don't know. I haven't even started drinking yet.
It's the beer. It's after 5. Cheers.
It's after 5. Cheers. Yes. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Anyway, it's the Old School Podcast. And with me, as we go through these landmines and minefields or whatever, is my good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir.
Here, Miller. Good morning or afternoon or whenever it is. It's good to be here. It's good. It's better than the alternative, not being here.
I feel like I'm in a safe house.
Yeah.
Like, one of those things where, all the furniture is not really furniture and it's just kind of like the bare necessities to keep somebody safe.
Oh, well, we don't need to get too much into our living situation right now here, Miller. As much
Not
as
that
you'd
you
like
and
to-
I are living together. That would be weird. But
Well, I'm okay with that. I'm
Okay.
comfortable. We've hoteled together before.
We have hotel together, so we don't need to go beyond that.
No. I was taking a little too far there.
But anyway, today, this episode, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages, it is our 150th episode. Can you believe it?
I sure can. 150. Is there a name for that? It's not a centennial.
It's a half centennial or bicentennial?
I think that was already taken.
Okay.
But it's the same as our nation, except for we need to add 100
years. Yes.
So
are you excited for the 250th anniversary of our country?
I had forgotten about it until I reminded myself right now. No, I'm not excited about it. I don't have any big plans to go on the Potomac or something.
Yeah, but can't you at least as an American sit back and look and gaze in wide wonder at the fact that this experiment born out of the Enlightenment is still with us? It may be a little bruised, it may be a little battered, but nevertheless, it is still with us.
It's sort of shocking. If you think 1776,
yes,
that's the date you're going to use. Mozart was alive then.
What other date would you use?
Well, I don't know, but there was high culture happening at that point. I guess the point I'm making is that, as the Americans started in that year, in Europe, they already had Mozart and this incredibly high culture. And I would argue that music and everything has gone downhill since the forming of our country.
Europe had Mozart. We have Taylor Swift.
I'm not complaining about Taylor Swift. I don't
She's
get
fine.
those Swifties.
We don't need the Swifties descending upon us. But it's fair to say, I think even the Swifties would admit that you can't really put Miss Swift or soon to be Miss Kelsey, whatever her name is going to be. You can't put her in the same category as, say, Mozart or
That's
Bach.
Right. So my thesis holds up.
Okay.
Culture doesn't improve with time. Certainly our public discourse has improved since then.
What is interesting, you mentioned public discourse. It's interesting that you mentioned the idea of conversation, because that is where we go today.
Oh.
The podcast episode is inspired in part by a recent episode of Words Unraveled. This is a favorite etymological linguistic podcast that I listen to. And they recently had Dr. John McWhorter on. He is a famous linguist from the University of Columbia University in New York. And they talked mainly about slurs and taboo words. We're going to take it in a kind of a little bit of a different direction. We will touch a little bit on, say, profanity, but we're going to take it on another angle. But just the idea of the degree to which language changes and how it changes. we're going to kind of make an assessment of a couple different categories of linguistic oral speech.
I did not do any preparation for this here, Miller.
Really?
Well, I brought the beer out. That's about it.
Well, I would be shocked if you did do preparation for this.
Yeah, there's always a first time. Well, why don't you lead the show or do a monologue for the next 40 minutes?
Okay,
Care
no,
to?
no. It has to be something that we both do together.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would just
I like language as much as the next guy. Um, I thought about something I don't like.
What?
Well, some people try to get philosophical and they say it is what it is. And I think that,
That's not philosophical. That's defeatist.
yeah, and it really masks a level of non thinking, to think it is what it is. That every one of those words is problematic in its own way, and a whole field of philosophy could be behind each of them, such as the meaning of being. And then using it twice in there, it's just nothing but contradictions and troubles. And I wouldn't call it a euphemism like you have on our list there. I don't know where it fits, but I don't like that phrase. That's my first foray into the conversation. It is what it is. Don't even say that.
Well, we'll get to that
Okay.
because I would suggest that that has a lot to do with trying to avoid responsibility for whatever is changing
Yeah.
than it has to do with assessing what is changing.
No,
So,
it's using things that are ready at hand, little statements to
Little-
avoid conversation or
Yeah.
thinking.
exactly.
But so much of it, of things that we hear from people in the news and just discourse in general, are these innocuous statements like
Mm.
that, and whatever you would call them, little cliche type phrases that almost has the effect of being the last word.
Mm.
Somebody says it is what it is. You say, "What are you going to do?"
You know,
At least it didn't. At least it didn't suffer. And that's the end. It's kind of like the mafia and their conversation. They just decide we don't want to really talk about this, but we'll say what we're supposed to and then move on.
From a practical point of view, the worst part about statements like that is that it's an attempt to try to avoid responsibility or avoid taking action. I think theoretically, though, and philosophically, I think the problem with that is that I've always been a fan of language. My father and I used to play games. He would put out a word, and then I would try to come up with a word that was similar to it in meaning and tone, whatever the case may be. And so, as much as I love the language, I also have an understanding of just how rich and varied and multi-layered this language is. And so, for someone to do a cop out by saying it is what it is, to me, there's so many more different ways to even say that at least would be a lot more interesting, a lot more engaging, or what have you. So,
It's a tautology.
tautology, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and the definition is a unnecessary repetition of an idea, word, or statement, either as a stylistic flaw or a statement that is true by necessity, or it's just not that clever.
I think yada 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 would be an example of tautology.
Almost everything I hear is a tautology, and that's maybe the whole purpose of our podcast. But I don't
Well,
know.
we're gonna focus on spoken
Sp-
language
yeah,
and not the written
that's
word.
okay. Yeah,
And so,
I'm with you on that. But I'm tired of hearing these phrases.
so we have a couple of categories, and the first I want to start out with is something that I must admit I have struggled with, and that is the notion of profanity. I struggle with it on a couple of fronts. One, I can certainly curse with the best of them.
Uh,
4.5 years in the Marine Corps, 30 years in a classroom. I don't know if anyone could come up with a word that would, one, shock me, or two, be something I've never heard before.
Okay.
But the thing is that I'm also a big believer in public discourse and common courtesy.
Yeah.
And it seems as if, profanity wise, it is not quite the same sacred cow as it used to be. It used to be that if you were in mixed company, if you had kids around you, if you had ladies around you, and I know that's old time thinking. Just
It
settle
is.
down. No one get on your high horse about that statement. But it used to be that if you were in mixed company, you just didn't do it. And now it seems like not only do people do it, you go to a ball game, you hear people talking, but they're loud about it.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
Do you think, though, that this is simply a digression of the seriousness of the words and that they have stopped being serious? I mean, if you think about it, the fact, I mean, it all starts when, when, well, it didn't start, but it was first kind of phrased and shaped when George Carlin talked about the 7 words that you can't say on television. And they were seen as words that were just so crazy, no one would even dream of saying it in public. But now, perhaps these words, which admittedly were arbitrarily made into quote unquote curse words, now all of a sudden do not have the power that they once did. Is this just like a natural progression?
It could be. I think that there's something else at play, though. You mentioned saying things that are unseemly in public.
Right.
I don't think people are as aware as they used to be that they're in public. It's like somebody talking on their cell phone in the waiting room or
Right.
something. There's no um, whatever you would call it, wanting to be careful about other people hearing you, so that there's no shame in a way. And so if you're at a baseball game and you're spouting off and not even thinking there could be kids behind you,
Yeah.
you should always assume that there are women and children,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
and people and maybe your boss
Mhm.
behind you when you're in public. So it's unseemly, and that I think has changed.
It's
Um,
a lack of situational awareness.
yeah,
And what's worse is that it's not even a lack of it, it's just a lack of concern for it. It's not that people like it's not as if people who are saying the F word in public go, "Oh my god, there's kids around, I shouldn't say that." It doesn't even enter into their mind that that's
right.
something to take into consideration anymore.
And then what if you, as you've done before, will correct somebody, try to right the ship as a perfect stranger?
Hmm.
I mean, you've done that, right?
I've done it, and it's one of those things where I think most people, when you confront them on it, it depends on the level of alcohol that's been consumed. Like
Always.
at a ball game,
Yeah.
there is a public pressure that you can bring to bear on someone who's just acting like an idiot and saying stuff they shouldn't say with kids around or what have you. But there I think in most cases I've had people be rather sheepish and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." I think they do it, they don't even know that they're doing it, or they don't even think about the fact that they're doing it. And listen, that's not unusual. I remember when I came out of the Marine Corps, and when I came out of the Marine Corps and I first came back home for the first, leave that I had, and I was about as foul-mouthed as possible, and my mother she was my sainted mother. She was shocked and appalled, and
Yeah.
it's only when you get called on it that you think about it. Otherwise, you're just saying what everyone else around you says, and so therefore, if everyone around you speaks that way, you end up speaking that way. You'd have to be a pretty self-possessed individual to hear the F word constantly around you and then not say it yourself as if it's okay to use.
Yeah. So it's all about the context and who's with you.
Mhm,
You're with your buddies watching a sporting event or something.
mhm.
I don't think there are too many things you can't say. And
Yeah,
and also just decorum. I mean, you would talk about all. We don't want the world to know what we would say in our private lives,
right.
and but if it's a public moment, um, what do you hear from kids in schools? You're in schools occasionally. Is that more or less of a problem now?
I mean, you definitely hear it. I think the younger the kid is, the more likely they are to say it when they think that they're outside of parental or adult control.
Yeah.
Because now, when I go pick up my daughter from school, she's in the 6th grade, and these hooligans come out, before her, and they're walking down, and quite a few of them are shouting out the F word.
Well,
To me, that is not an example of someone doing something maliciously. These are just idiots that are trying to look cool, and they think this is the way you do it is by saying the F word. And so I kind of put that in a different category. Now, the high schoolers is a different story. And on a couple of occasions where I have come across high schoolers that will say something that they shouldn't say, I would just walk up to them and say, "Hey, remember where you are." And then usually that will create enough chastisement to they'll either lower their voice or they'll stop saying it.
They're not gonna talk to you in those same terms because they're immediately intimidated upon seeing you. And they're thinking of their own well-being a little bit.
Yeah. But it's interesting, these words that we're talking about is George Carlin said, there's nothing about these words
No,
that are inherently evil.
no, it's just
And,
sounds
but
coming out of your mouth.
it sounds coming out of your mouth, but at some point, certain kinds of meanings were attached to them
Yeah.
to make them worse than they are. And it just seems like a lot of that meaning and a lot of that forebodance about it is now gone. There's a couple words that still reign supreme. I think the C word is probably the biggest word. If you throw out that word, first of all,
We don't even need to talk about that. You don't, I mean, even
but you
bringing
don't
it up in a podcast,
but you know what I'm saying though. I mean, it's
uh,
I think most profanity has kind of lost a lot of its luster, and so therefore it's not quite
well,
the same issue as it was when we were kids.
so it's taken a different turn. Now it becomes it's not just uncouth, it's even more,
Right.
with the kind of wokeness and politically correct, even
Mhm.
some things that used to be innocuous,
Yeah.
you can't say anymore. Even the names of football teams that we used to
Mm.
say, you know, you can't even say the word.
But it's in well, if we're not going to go down that particular path, but dear listener, if you do
Yeah,
want to hear that particular category of thought,
yeah,
that's what the podcast with John McWhorter focused on, talking about the notion of slurs and those sorts of things, taboo words that people use that has changed, and a lot of it is a result of a change in sensibilities. There are ways that we would categorize things, and let's go ahead and shift into the second category, the idea of euphemisms.
you for who?
Euphemism.
Oh,
You know that word, don't you?
I do. I use it all the time. I mean, I use them all the time. I'm very careful with what I say.
But I go back to George Carlin. George Carlin used to have this routine where he talked about soldiers in World War One came home and they were suffering from shell shock.
Yeah,
And it was very literal and it was very easy to understand.
yeah,
Why is that kid walking by himself in the corner and drooling at the mouth? For example, that guy's got shell shocked. He was
yeah.
in World War One. He was in the trenches. He was bombed out of his mind, and this is what's happened to him. Unfortunately, now you go from shell shock to post traumatic stress disorder, and I think with a lot of euphemisms, here's where I might say we need to maybe change something because what it does is it clouds the meaning of the words.
So you'd rather not call it that.
Well, I think some people find offense or some people find certain words too strong and they try to find a nice way to say it, and but the problem is that a nice way of saying it clouds the meaning and it makes language more uncertain. And I think that that's potentially part of the problem. So we do it for different reasons. Yeah, we mentioned euphemisms in relation to political correctness. You're trying not to offend, you're trying not to hurt people unnecessarily, and so you're trying to come up with a different way to say something. But unfortunately, that different way is just not very declarative as to what it means.
Well, I think that PTSD is very descriptive, and it's not so specific to the being bombed
Yeah,
literally. And so you can experience that now from any type of abuse or whatever
car accident,
anything.
anything.
Yeah, being forced to do algebra,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So in a way, it shows that we've gotten soft as a culture,
Yeah.
because so many things, "Oh, I have that," and it actually, like, often happens dishonors the original meaning of it, which was a very serious occurrence,
Yeah.
but very
Well,
narrow.
someone getting a paper cut and then
Yeah,
having PTSD with stationary.
yeah,
But we're not talking necessarily about that. But in some cases, like
yeah,
PTSD,
yeah,
it does allow for it to apply to different situations.
yeah,
But I still can't help but think about about, for example, so I had, for those of you who don't know, dear listeners, I am, or perhaps was, still am, a man of size. And I had a trainer that would get upset every time I would refer to myself as fat. And she would say, "You shouldn't say that." I said, "Well, if I can't say it, I'm not sure how you fix it. You know, you got to call it for what it is. I'm fat." And so to come up with some sort of euphemistic phrase,
You're big boned.
I mean, I'm husky. I'm husky. But I think that, yeah, I think part of it is they think they're being nice, but the problem is the more opaque you get with the language, the more you can write it off as being something different and therefore not a problem, you know? And I know let me listen. I also know you should never make fun of somebody because they're fat or because they're overweight or big or whatever the case may be, but you do still have to call it for what it is. But most people are not going to use that particular word. I'll use it for myself, but it's a word that's not used anymore.
But kids were much more direct, at least when I grew up, and they probably are now too. And they would call what it is what it is.
Yeah.
I almost said something. Having to do with the suits of cards, but you know you can't say that, which is my whole point.
Right.
Not that I would like to say that, but we're hyper aware. You know, and if you do business and you're talking to groups of people that aren't necessarily I mean, you're trying to keep this high level conversation. Everybody's hyper aware of it, what they say, and they're careful. They're walking on eggshells, and that's
Mhm.
part of maybe our complaint. You know, there's nothing wrong sometimes with being direct.
I wonder if so you would say that this is not wholly a negative direction that we're going into, that
I,
there are times when it may be necessary to be a bit more deflective in our language, but there may still be times where the most direct response, the most direct verbiage is preferable.
well, if you ever use AI,
Mhm.
I mean,
I
there are
never used AI.
okay. You've never?
I don't
Come
think
on,
so.
come on, Ross. I don't believe that.
If I did, I was not aware I was using AI.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, different AIs have different political persuasions and tones. Um, and some are really careful if you say something a little bit too assertive. They'll say, "You don't really mean that," you know. And I say, "Well, yes, I do, and here's why." And so I bully my AI. You know, you sometimes I'll when I'm not getting what I want, I'm getting a little frustrated. I say, "Well, I'm about to go to the other one. I'm going to move from OpenAI to Grok,"
Mhm.
you know, and or I've just asked a question and say that, you know, "You've wasted about 4 hours of my time, and after all, time is all we have.
Yeah.
Tell me why I shouldn't fire you." I think there's a point to this that the AIs are really gifted in language and
Mhm.
very careful and precise,
Mhm.
but it depends on how they're trained.
Mhm.
You know, some of them are very aggressive. Some can mimic your tone
Mhm.
if you want it to. So, I mean, I have a business. I've trained a business bot that knows all about my company, and I say I want direct answers and I want a little pushback at the end.
Mhm.
So you're not a cheerleader because their default is to be very nice and cheerleader. You can do it. You got this.
Complimentary.
Yeah, yeah, which is unbelievably annoying. But you can train it, but it will follow exactly. But it's incredibly gifted in avoiding these little linguistic traps that we fall into.
Mm. Yeah, and so maybe, yeah, so you can train AI to do and act in every way that you want it to do. You can make it the most observant, the most sensitive, the most crude.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes when well, I'll have some people that goes, "Have you ever seen the Washington Redskins play?" They're using the Redskins. They know it's not the name of the team anymore, but they use it as kind of like their passive aggressive resistance to change that's happened. And so, and in some cases you could say, well, that word probably could have gone. But I just think, I wonder if there is a cumulative effect by being so careful with our words that we will end up not communicating because we're not saying what we mean and the other person is not picking up what we mean. At that point, does it cease to be communication?
I don't think that the danger is people suddenly being too nice to each other. I think on the social media things that we avoid,
Yes.
my understanding is that people are rather direct and crass.
Well, they're not direct. They're not trying to be direct. They're trying to be hurtful and mean.
Yeah,
They're an asshole.
yeah, and so many worse. Um, but I think that with the AIs out there, it's stunning when if you're in business and you read emails,
Mhm.
everybody's writing has gotten way better. People are it's not
Well,
just
their writing has not gotten better.
no, here's the thing. It's not just you need to use AI. You take your copy it and paste it into AI. That's not how it works anymore. You start typing in an email, like using Gmail,
Right.
and it'll give you suggestions, suggested edits right there. And it's funny because there were about 10 years ago, I wanted to start a company that basically helped people write emails in business, and they would
Right.
send their email to us and we would fix it
Yeah.
manually.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're getting these suggestions too wordy, but with a suggestion there, it's basically more than spell check, it's stylistic and content. And I think that when there's going to be a moment, the, the AIs can do so much already,
Mhm.
but if you give them your mouse,
Mhm.
which is not that it's doable already, they they can do everything you do all day, but they can also write your emails for you. And I mean, I get an email for somebody, and maybe I have a real hot version of uh, Gmail,
Okay.
and where I get something from a customer or something, and it gives me a draft of my response to them,
Mhm.
including their name. Hey, George, thanks for the email. I'm going to take a look at this and get back to you in 2 days.
Mhm.
Boom. And all I need to do is hit send.
Right.
Um, and but what it's also doing is taking all the wit and all the interest and all the personality. So eventually, this communication is going to be as absurd as you want it to be. It's between one AI and another AI having conversations sort of on your behalf and the other person's. It's stupid.
And it broaches the next category, and it
Yeah.
has to do with the informality
Well,
of the language. And you speaking of formality, talking about it, adherence to grammatical
yeah.
rules and things of that nature. Like most technology that we have talked about on the podcast before, it does have the effect of either preventing someone from exercising the knowledge they have about how grammar works, or prevents them from learning it in the first place. And so it has a de-skilling effect for someone's ability to be able to ascertain how do you string together a sentence. And so it started long ago, and it started under the guise that this is too cumbersome. And so for some of our older listeners that are tuned in
And
and
still alive.
still alive, like us, you may remember having to diagram sentences when you were in school. Diagram sentences became kind of like a joke because it is laborious. It can be complicated to do, complicating to teach. But it speaks to someone's understanding of how the language works and where different parts of the language goes within the course of a sentence. And we don't have that anymore. And because of that, we our sentences and our sentence structure and our understanding about parts of speech has been greatly reduced. Now, you throw in Nike. What is it? Chat GBT?
Oh my gosh.
What is it?
I'm enjoying this. Take another sip of your beer. It's Chat GPT.
Chat GBT.
Oh my God, you still haven't said it right.
You know what I'm talking about, dear listeners, Steve. You know what I'm talking about. It seems like that has the ability of, on even a greater level
Yeah.
and to a greater degree, robbing people of having the initial understanding of what it means to string together words. And and of course, the informality of it is not just a question of not caring about grammatical rules, ending a sentence with a preposition, all this other stuff. But it also has to do with the fact that we just don't speak in terms that might be considered formal. We've talked about this before. One of the things I like about being in Germany, one of the things I like about being in Japan, there's a formality to it. It's exercised in the language. I don't know anything about the Japanese language, but culturally, formality still is a very important element. And in German, it's an important element. And it's one of the things that I connect with the most and I find myself longing for when I'm not there is that idea of formality. And so we talked about this before. I walk into a store, hey, dude, what's going on? And I said, well, first of all, you cannot dude me. Let's try sir. Let's see if that works. You see how that goes.
It's gotta be tough going through the day like that. How many of these little strange, odd interactions?
To me, I'm a giver. That's what I do.
Yeah,
I give advice. Don't call me dude. Don't call anybody dude. Unless your buddy walks in, don't call anyone dude. This is very simple ideas, but it is something that's more prevalent. And I wonder how much of it is something that we should be pushing back on, or is it just the natural evolution about how language changes over time?
well, you really think we should have a caste system with
What?
well, I mean,
The hell are you talking
do you
about?
say sir to somebody who's relatively wealthy and they're wearing a suit, and dude to somebody who's wearing a T-shirt? Because
I say sir to everybody. I don't say
yeah,
first of all, I don't dude anyone.
well, maybe if you wore a blazer or something, that would think they would still call you dude?
They call me man. They're trying to be it's all about trying to be friendly and hip and having a great experience when you're in their restaurant or when you're in their store or shop.
I
It's crap, but
No,
I
you
wonder if
you
it's
you
just
can establish it, and you do with the waiter. You refer to them as sir right out of the gate,
right.
and so it establishes what's about to happen. And you ask them your name, which is probably the only time during their day when someone asks them their name, and it's a nice thing. And so you set the tone preemptively, and it works really well. And I think they like it.
But it's not always reciprocated. And so I wonder if I should take it easy on myself,
Yeah,
cut myself some slack,
yeah.
and just not worry about it if the millennial behind the counter is saying "dude" to me. But I can't help it. It just it chips away at my soul every time some yahoo calls me dude.
We're extremely old compared to them. I mean, they look at us and they're saying, "This geriatric person, can you walk back to your car without
Yeah,
falling?"
yeah.
Um,
But
so
it does make you wonder about how much of this is our problem and how much of it is it a real linguistic problem. And like I said, language changes all the time. And so the fact that we're in the midst of a change or that we're old enough to have observed a change, I'm just not sure is that, I mean, maybe we're way off course.
um, remember you and I wrote about the centrality of the word. That was
Mm,
one of our topics in our book. And there was a time back with early Facebook
okay.
where people did a lot of typing and lot of conversation, a lot of writing. And that's the same with the beginnings of AI.
Hmm.
A lot of typing, a lot of text.
Hmm.
And so people have been reading more and they're writing more, they're writing prompts
Hmm.
and all of this. And then the next stage is, well, no, you can just speak your prompt.
Hmm.
And maybe you can get a video or image, and the AIs are getting incredible. Their capacity to build image or video, whatever you need.
Hmm.
And so this honeymoon period of all this rich text is already gone.
All right.
And so the word and the image, you and I are still trying to push people to reading, however it is. And the but I think the biggest worry is just the lack of this disembodied text tends to be dull, and people, and it's an educational problem, aren't going to be able to tell the difference between something that's actually insightful and something that's AI generated, because AI is incredibly insightful now.
Right.
and you learn things, you get ideas.
It's just not interesting.
Well, it's becoming that because if you think about it, it's just like having a child. I mean, you're training your bot in every interaction. I mean, I'm writing it at my normal level. Often I'll write in German
Mhm.
to the bot. I'm citing literature, all this stuff, and it becomes really smart
Mhm.
and starts. So it's a mirror of you, which is
But how much is AI picking up on patterns
Mhm.
as opposed to being insightful?
Oh,
Because insightful requires a level of intelligence that I'm not sure computers have reached yet.
oh,
My daughter growing up
yeah,
is able to internalize a bunch of different things that she may not do anything with it, or worse yet, just fly in the face of it. But there's a lot of different processes at work when she is confronted with new verbiage, new situations, new ideas. And so it's not just a parroting or a mimicking of what someone else has labeled as insightful. You could say that AI is basically doing that. It's not producing insight, it's mimicking insight.
yeah. I don't know if I agree. I mean, it has it can extend ideas.
Mhm.
It's getting better, not every day, but every hour. And so you need to live in that to see just how profound it is, because it's it's no longer this general thing, right? As all this general knowledge is scraping off of social media,
Mhm.
but we are all feeding it every day, and so it's growing in subtlety. Um, it still lacks wit.
I wonder what will happen when we are no longer able to feed it because we have forgotten the rules, we've forgotten how to communicate in a spoken way or even a written way. Once we're not able to do that anymore,
Yeah.
does IA continue to learn, or are they still is it
You called it IA.
AI, um,
I'm like smiling and laughing at you at the same time.
I mean, it's just one beer for God's sakes. I don't understand. But I mean, I wonder what happens when we're no longer able to feed the beast. What does the beast turn into?
Well,
And so,
here's an example.
okay,
Sometimes you can wear out your AI. Sounds strange, but you can.
and the AI will just say, "Steve, that's enough for
No,
today."
no, it gets slower. I mean, I'm giving it hundreds and hundreds of prompts. Sometimes I'm putting in an image or a very complex image of a file,
Yeah.
um, a- a- and lots of back and forth. I'll put in a massive data set,
Hmm.
with hundreds of rows, hundreds of columns. It analyzes that, and eventually, that's one individual chat on a train bot. And eventually it starts to bog down. It takes longer to respond. And then if you just ask it, "Hey, are you still with me?" It'll still take a long time, and then it'll go back and summarize the whole project for
Right.
you, but it's slowing down, and so then I'll say, "Okay, you're wearing out, and it's been really good working with you, but I want to continue this. I don't wanna lose. Would you write me a training summary for the next chatbot?"
Mm.
And it gives you that perfectly, and it says, "Thank you, Godspeed." And then you paste that into the new bot, and it's going breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Um, so the question is they can keep up with us, and it's feeding on everything, and so it's exponential. It's not, so I don't but but your question is more about us, and are we losing capacity by doing that? I think at present, we're gaining capacity using it, and it's actually making us smarter, and we're looking more critically at things. So it's this golden age.
So I don't think that's true at all. I don't think we're gaining anything. I think AI is
Oh,
gaining
you never
stuff.
used it. You called it IA about a minute ago.
What I'm saying is the same reason why I know
Yeah.
that people who constantly use the backup camera don't know how to back up. And so because so you're just talking about an extrapolation of the same concept. The more that computers do stuff for us, the less we're capable of doing it ourselves. Now, this brings us to the last
Oh, let's
stage.
stay with this for one
Okay.
for the last day. You're looking at the World Wide Web here.
Yes.
I put in the word tautology.
Yes.
So there was a time when you'd get a bunch of websites,
Right.
dictionary things, and you would go out.
Yeah.
But immediately you're getting the AI response to that. So it takes a whole screen, and so the AI is now the internet,
Right.
and immediately you get the AI summary of that. Um, and so websites are becoming antiquated. Who's going to go to Reddit? Who's going to go to this? You already got your answer just with AI.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying it's changing
I don't look at
so
that.
quickly.
I don't look at that part.
Well, then the other part would be a bunch of ads.
No, you just skip down to where the first website and then or you just save the website that you like the most to look up definitions and you
Well,
just go
but
there.
this gave a great definition.
Oh, well, here's an idea.
Yeah.
I have a book dictionary not far from where my desk is, and I just go to that dictionary and I use
Okay,
it.
and then we can hook up the fax machine, and we don't need a computer. But I guess what I'm getting at is that AI and the internet are one, and things are changing so quickly. Um, and it's like Postman said, it's not equal for different people. But I will say that people who are not using it are falling behind. And that's existentially dangerous.
Well, I'll be dead before that has any effect on me. But it does make me think about
Yeah,
there was a Star Trek quote unquote enemy
yeah,
that only communicated telepathically.
nice.
And at one point they were asked, why did you ever used to speak? And they said, well, yes, but we found that speech was very messy and very unpredictable
Yeah,
and it caused a lot of emotions.
yeah,
And so now we developed so that we now communicate telepathically.
great.
The idea of losing those abilities, it creates a separate problem, and this is the last theme of
Oh,
the podcast today,
yeah.
and it has to do with language acquisition. Wild beast anyway. The so we were a teacher, yes? Are you gonna pause it?
No, I can't pause it.
Okay.
Normally I mute myself, but we're live together, so I can just stare at my dog.
Tell that dog to settle down.
Yeah.
But you have taught languages, we have both learned languages, and when I learn a language and I'm trying to perfect my German, one of the things I always stay away from is informal speech. When I end up dealing with like slang terms or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
because that's a bit too dangerous. For a newcomer coming into a language, and all of a sudden you try to talk street, you try to talk slang. I mean, you're just inviting all different kind of problems. But the more people, and so therefore, when I'm speaking German, I typically speak in like a
Like
high
like
German,
like evening
the
news.
evening news kind of German. Some people can adjust to that. Some people choose not to, and I'm left trying to figure out dialects and accents or what have you. But I do wonder what happens to a person's ability to not only learn a language, but to be able to adequately, appropriately utilize that language in a situation where the language is becoming increasingly informal, increasingly deconstructed, so that almost anything goes. It just seems like it's fraught with problems, and it certainly seems like it might prevent, without extraordinary effort, it might prevent someone from becoming fluent in a language.
I think that there are so many tools now to learn the language, and going back again for about the 50th time to the chat. I mean, you can have a conversation,
Mm,
and you know, and you can ask for High German.
mhm,
You can ask for Bayerisch from Bavarian dialect or
mhm.
whatever you want, and get it. So technically it's not a problem, but I
But at the
agree.
same time,
Yeah,
you're trusting AI
yeah,
to use informal language appropriately.
yeah.
And without you having already an innate understanding of what's appropriate or what's not in the form of slang or, just, Umgangssprache, the idea that you become less and less capable of knowing what AI is doing because you don't have that knowledge, nor probably should you. You should be sticking to the formal
I
language.
think you should. I mean, you pick up the local language locally.
Yes.
So I don't, looking up the Rhine language on, in a book and mispronouncing it. I mean, even saying good morning is you're going to sound they're going to laugh at you
Well, yeah.
when you try to do it, and so we become a little comedy act using their language.
Yes.
But I mean, we're both, we speak a pretty high level, but the Germans speak High German to us,
Yes.
and to each other, it's a German that we don't
Right.
really catch much. We catch some, but
Right.
so I think you definitely need both. But as far as the learning process, you need to stick to the books and the rules. And,
Right. So, but
it's hard enough. Why start with the?
But imagine someone coming to the United States
Yeah.
needing to learn English. What the hell are they learning? Because the vast majority of people that they're talking to are increasingly incapable of speaking the language the way it's supposed to be spoken. Again, it depends on your demographics, depends on who you're with, what age group, what have you. But there is a lot of uncertainty about how the language is spoken from like a logical, kind of systematic approach to learning a language. Because of that, you could see the potential dilemmas in someone coming to the United States, not knowing a lick of English and then trying to figure it out. A language that already is difficult in and of itself.
I think they should go to England. Have Germans go live there and learn to say "jolly that." But yeah, I think there's such a big difference between reading knowledge and listening knowledge and then speaking, and
Right.
and you need to do each of those to learn each of those. So kind of this theoretical book type language, it means that you can read, and so that's great. But to speak, you need to be among the
Among the masses.
Yeah, among the masses. Got to get in there and, and do it. But listening to watching television, listening to the news, all of that helps you, but it's completely passive. Listening means that you're learning how to listen.
Yeah,
and it won't help you write. So you need to do all of them.
And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help you to speak. I mean,
Not at all. Not at all. You can be completely involved in a conversation, but just understanding,
right,
but not contributing much, but little one word affirmations.
right.
And we've both been in situations where we're in a conversation and we say, yeah, haha, yeah, oh yeah.
We do it more, or I certainly do it more than I care to admit. But yes, I mean, you do run into that. But all these things that we've talked about, the idea of profanity, the idea of euphemisms, the idea of informality, language acquisition. All of this is with the understanding that language does change. To sit here and yell at the stars because the language is changing, you might as well yell at a storm, saying stop making all this destruction. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when are you living, at what point of the change are you kind of experiencing, and that creates its own kind of anxiety, or at least it can. And so, anyway, all this stuff was based off of, or was kind of inspired by, an episode of Words Unraveled with Rob Watts and Jess Safaris, talking to Professor John McWhorter of Columbia, talking about the notion of slur and other types of words and how that has changed over time. So it's a very interesting podcast. I think our podcast is pretty interesting.
Well, they can't hold a candle to us, but you can maybe put their link in the description. I want to go back to what it is what it is. Is that what I said earlier?
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So one thing Heidegger said about being and language, he said that language is the house of being, and that so to unpack that would take hours and hours. But language is the house of being, and we exist and think in terms of language. I mean, that's what's happening internally. So if we compromise language to the point that you kind of created this dystopian vision of no longer having words at all, then being itself, or at least our conception of it, recedes, and the gods flee. what are we left with? So that isn't that a great way to end a podcast?
I feel better. And so with that, everybody, hey, enjoy your spring break
Oh yeah,
wherever you may
it's
be.
great. Yes, go out to the water, Daytona Beach.
Yes, yeah. You do you, boo. All right. Do what you got to do. Enjoy the language. Enjoy communicating with your fellow man. If you find a fellow man capable of communication, and come back next time. It's our 150th episode.
That's right.
Thank you so much for sticking around. Congratulations, here, Dr. Bourgeois.
We might need to continue celebrating.
Yes, and we will. And with that, I shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Miller.